Bolt your windows. Lock your doors. Check your closets. Look under your bed. And then prepare yourself. For it's another episode of Dark Knight of the Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and all in between. Welcome to another episode of Dark Knight of the Podcast, and I'm thrilled and excited to say that it's Tawny Katane week here at Dark Knight of the Podcast, and I've been counting down. I've been counting down for Tawny Katane week because I can't get enough of her with that big red hair and all those White Snake music videos she used to be in, and parts of this movie we're reviewing today feel kind of like it's a White Snake music video made just for Tawny Katane. Troy, when you hear Tawny Katane, what comes to mind?
Here I go again on my own. And her dancing and shaking her ass all over the hood of that car in the video. We gotta say rest in peace though, because she did pass away in 2021. So
I know,
yeah,
I know. We lost a good one.
did.
We lost a good one. I gotta say that what comes to mind for me more than anything is that season of The Surreal Life that she was on with Florence Henderson and the lead singer of Smash Mouth, and they filmed a music video for Smash Mouth. Like that was one of the episodes, and I have this distinct memory of Tawny Katane. The only vehicle that they could get for her, I guess, was a Volkswagen Bug. And I have this vivid memory of Tawny Katane dancing on the hood of this Volkswagen Bug in like a hotel, like a motel parking lot. Like it was just very sad. But I took great joy out of Tawny Katane and the few contributions she did offer to pop culture. They are very memorable. And I feel Witchboard kind of falls under that too. Memorable in its own way. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this was given specifically to her to be like her star vehicle to launch maybe an acting career that just never came to fruition as expected, which, she's fine in this film. The camera loves her. She's very photogenic, looks great on camera. Her acting, not terrible. I mean, we've seen worse.
I think when she has some of her like more bigger dramatic moments, she's maybe a little greener than the moments that are more like natural, like her, like upbeat, kind of cheerful, positive. Like the moments that she, I think, seems the most natural and comfortable is when Linda, her character Linda, is expressing like joy or wide-eyed wonder or excitement. She's actually quite likable in those moments, and I think she makes for a fairly engaging female lead, if you will.
Yeah, so folks, if you haven't figured it out with Tawny Katane Week, we are discussing 1986's Witchboard, suggested to us by, this is our final listener pick, Roger. We've made it through. We made it through. So we got to thank Julie Brock, one of our patrons from the beginning. Also, we have
Yes.
to mention that. She has been very supportive. She chose this title for us. We originally were going to do Near Dark. I think we mentioned that at the end of our last episode, but unfortunately, we had to choose a different film due to streaming limitations with Near Dark. So I am ecstatic to have been able to watch Witchboard again. So thank you, Julie, for coming through and giving us an alternative suggestion. I had not seen this film for years. I mean, I saw this film probably back in the 80s, and there's two specific scenes that I do remember from this film. But rewatching it, was like a whole new experience because I just did not remember the ending. I did not remember a lot of it. So it was an experience. So thank you, Julie. We are covering, like I said, Witchboard. Ironically enough, directed by Kevin Tenney, who gave us, I mean, the far superior and the far more memorable Night of the Demons.
Oh, and you see it there for sure. There are some moments that feel very Night of the Demons. The perspective shots, like the demonic POV, if you will, which also has kind of some Evil Dead vibes. But when I saw that, I was like, oh, this harkens right to like that same technique he used in Night of the Demons. So you definitely pick up on it. But I do appreciate that overall, in like tone and just like the kind of story that's trying to be told here, I wouldn't say it feels like Night of the Demons. This very much feels like its own thing.
It does. It's much less fantastical than Night of the Demons. It's more grounded, I think. And I mean that was the impression I got from the opening of the film. Night of the Demons has one of the most, and we've talked about it, one of the most memorable, I think, opening credit sequences of any horror film to come out of the 80s. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, yes.
Okay, this one does not. I mean, this one is just so right away. It's kind of setting that tone of being way more grounded in reality. The opening credits of this film are just just bland. It's just white text on a screen as we kind of zoom in on the close up of this. What I assume, it's kind of confusing. At some points, it seems like it's a house, right?
Yeah.
But then it's supposed to be an apartment complex run by none other than Miss Rose Marie from the Dick Van Dyke Show.
A little cameo appearance, if you will.
Oh yeah.
A very little cameo. There ain't much of her.
She's not given much to do at all.
Yeah. It seems like it's this old house with a lot of history behind it that has since been broken up into like several apartments. And one of the apartments within this house are leading players. Several of them reside. It's Jim and Linda's apartment, and it kind of opens up with them having this event at this house. And the first time you see the house, I swear to God, it like the shot hovers on the house for like 3 minutes straight. Like I was like, how long are we going to look at this fucking house? Like I get it, and you've got this like really kind of the era electronic synth heavy music kind of coming in, very much setting the tone. It feels very much plucked right from that time period, right from the 80s. Everything about it, from the way they film the movie to the clothing they wear to the music that's playing, it is very much not what I would call ahead of its time. It is very much a product of the era.
Oh, absolutely. Even the opening scene that introduces us to the variety of characters that we spend the rest of the film with is a party that is very much 80s. The fashion is completely 80s. It's like a bunch of, 80s, your stereotypical 80s yuppies gathered in this apartment of Linda and Jim, having a party when we are introduced, like I said, to our main characters, Linda and Jim, who are a couple. And then Brandon, who is having a conversation about not believing in God.
Oh, I instantly hate them right away when I hear this conversation. It's so pretentious.
Right away, we are also introduced to some of the animosity that exists between Jim, played by Todd Allen, and Brandon, played by Stephen Nichols. There is this animosity to it, and we kind of find out the source of it as the film goes on. But as he's having this discussion with this nerdy dude that's sitting next to him, Brandon mentions the fact that, hey, how can you even think that there is intelligent life on Earth when we have Jim here making a jab at him? Jim gets upset, goes into the kitchen to get away from the jabs of Brandon. In the kitchen, he runs into two of these like annoying stoner type guys. One of them is named Lloyd. I don't know the other one's name. And some conversation ensues about how pretentious Brandon is. His family comes from his family owns what is it, a vineyard or something? So they have a lot of money. Obviously, he thinks he's better than everybody else. And Jim goes into a little bit of detail about how when they were younger, they used to be really, really close. But Brandon thinks that Jim stole Linda from him because we find out that Brandon and Linda used to date.
I think the way that they introduce these characters, it doesn't necessarily do them a lot of favor because you kind of come in on the most like unlikable note. Like it's this pretentious conversation about God, and it's so like baseline. If you listen to the dialogue, it's so like the most simplistic take on whether or not there is like a God. How can there not be a God? Like how would you explain us being here today? Like I don't know, it seems kind of half-assed, this whole dialogue that I'm hearing, and it just doesn't make them seem likable because it just does read on both ends. They each have a major trait that makes them just overall very hard to stomach at first. Jim is obviously an alcoholic and very mean, and very cruel. And then Brandon has all of this hostility towards Jim. So he's also very pretentious and very uppity. And so all of his jabs at Jim are very like kind of talking down to him and belittling him. So it makes them both very unlikable. And I just think that it doesn't do either of them any favors, but it does at least present Linda right off the bat to be the most likable of the three focal characters.
Oh, with that sensible bun and that white, ensemble she's wearing. I mean, come
The
on.
volume of hair atop Linda's head is just it is so much red hair. Tawny Kitane's hair is out of control in this movie.
And do you notice it gets progressively redder as the film
I
goes
love
on?
it.
Like the
And those nails. Let's
yeah.
talk about, these nails are not fitting of the story at all. Like, they're presenting Linda to be one way, and she's lovely and she's beautiful, but she has this fire engine red hair, and it's just all consuming. And then she's got these fucking stripper nails, and not only are they stripper nails at the beginning of the movie, by the end of the movie they are like scarlet red. They are so distracting. They are always like, whenever they're on camera, my eyes go right to her fucking like hooker nails. But I love that for her. I love that for Linda, that she's a confident woman with such exaggerated nails.
I did find it interesting, that the opening shot of the film as they're having this discussion, that Linda is sitting very closely to Brandon, right? When she's supposed to be with Jim. I felt that was kind of an sort of a little confusing element to add, because with the hostility that Brandon and Jim have, you wouldn't expect her to be like that cozy next to Brandon.
Yeah, yeah.
And Jim being okay with it. It was kind of a weird little thing that I noticed. I'm like, this really doesn't fit the dynamic of the characters that they're really trying to present here. And then did you notice like the one nerdy guy like hanging all over
Yes.
Brandon? I'm like, is
Oh,
this supposed to be like a homoerotic?
if we're gonna talk homoerotic tones, this movie's chock fucking full of
Oh,
them.
it's full of them.
Oh, it's brimming. It's just
Yes.
one of the gayer movies I've seen in a while.
I was all, hey, later on in the film when the two male leads are staying in that hotel room, I fully expected some,
I was like, when are the dicks coming out? Because, like, literally, this movie does set itself up to be a big, long lead up to what is just a very elaborate gay porn. And it could have done that and probably been just as successful in what it's trying to do.
It probably would have been a little bit more interesting, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you know what? I hate to say it. I like this movie. It's fun. It's very fun, but there's a certain kind of flatness that exists from beginning to end for me, from the visuals, and it's often shot well, but there's just still something kind of bland about it. I think a lot of it's the interior of the location. The house itself is beautiful, but you get a lot of this really bland apartment interior, and there's this certain kind of like glossy cinematic quality that it's just lacking, and I can't put my finger on it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about, and I also feel like it's the story. The story is pretty hollow and shallow, and the ending really kind of leaves, at least for me, I don't know about you, the ending kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And I will explain, obviously, as we get there why. But I feel like there's a lot of like build up to something that could have been really interesting and really dynamic and really like extreme over, and it just doesn't have, it never happens.
Oh yeah, and to build off that, Troy, I also feel that a lot of the things it's trying to do as it's building up, and maybe it was budgetary restraints. Like, I don't know how big of a scale this production really was. I didn't do my sleuthing to that extent. To be completely transparent, I just kind of went in, watched the movie, and like stepped away from it. Like, this is how I feel about this film. But looking at it for just what it is, I'm assuming it had to be just budget or of the era. I don't feel like, they're talking about like her getting sick and taken over by this force as it starts to progress, but I never feel like we see anything that really is building up any real like fear or hinting at there's actually a presence within her house or around Linda. And we'll get to that more, but I just think like they could have done a way better job of building the dread, that level of dread around her. You get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I do. There's just something that's, I think you're right. There's just something that's off about the film, and it never comes together as fully as it probably should. So Linda comes into the kitchen and is trying to console Jim about how Brandon's treated her. He makes the comment, why did you even invite him? You knew this was going to happen. She's like, yeah, I know, but just kind of deal with it. It's gonna be fine. And we start this trend of her telling him that she loves him. And his response is always, I know. He never says it back, and you can tell it bothers him. And then it is brought up in conversation between her and Brandon later on. So I did find that, again, I found that very interesting. It was an interesting plot element to put between this couple that is going to be our protagonist. But again, it never really goes to the extent that I think it could have, to, give them some layer and some depth to their characters. They go out into the living room, and now the conversation shifts to spirits. And for some reason, Brandon brought his Ouija board to this party. I mean, I guess he just carries this Ouija board around with him everywhere.
This is such a weird introduction to the what's at play, the Witchboard, if you will. This is just such a weird way to like force it into the conversation.
Yeah, it's just at this like big yuppie party, and he just happens to bring the Ouija board along with him. And the film's called Witchboard. I'm assuming it's because they could not get the rights to call it Ouija board, because that's a trademarked name. I just want to point that out, because the word Witchboard is never mentioned in the film. It's a Ouija board the entire time.
Right.
But yeah, so he talks about this Ouija board that he has, and that it works best with two people, and the two people need to have pure systems, meaning they don't drink, they're not smoking, they're not drinking. As we watch Jim sit there and chug, booze and chain smoke, and Linda's her curiosity is a little piqued. So Brandon asks her, "Hey, do you want to try this?" And she's like, "No, I don't think so." And he sort of convinces her to do it by telling her about a spirit that he contacts all the time named David. And David is the spirit of a little boy who died, who apparently inhabits this particular Ouija board, because the Ouija board was built on the same day that David died. She agrees, and they start playing the Ouija board, and he asks, "Hey, David, are you there?" And the Ouija board planchette moves to yes. And then he asks, "How old are you, David?" And it goes to 8. And he immediately stops. He pulls his hands off the board, and he's like, "Nope, we're done." And Linda's like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "That's not David. David is 10. And you have to be really careful about the spirits that you contact, because they can be mischievous. They like to lie to you. And so you just need to be aware of what you're doing, what you're asking, how much information you are providing to this particular Ouija board."
I feel like this Ouija board setup it's very convoluted, and it's got a lot of layers to it. And maybe at the time there is just less public knowledge about Ouija boards, but like they're taking it real seriously. Like Brandon is into this. He's really passionate about talking about the Ouija board. So he specifically makes sure that everyone knows it's a Ouija board, not a Ouija board, and he like corrects everybody on it. This whole story he has about like, I talked to this child specter named David. He's 10 years of age. He died the day that the Ouija board was constructed. Like, it's a lot of nonsense. And they're taking it so very seriously. Like, it doesn't feel like there's kind of like a heightened reality to all of this. He is 100% sold on what he's saying to these people about this fucking Ouija board. And it does make it kind of like a hard pill to swallow this early into the film, that you're getting such like a nonsensical bit of information that you have to go off of and be like, okay, this is the plot. Like, this is what they're giving me. I just gotta roll with it. I gotta go with it. And like, what comes from it will come from it. And it really is a really weak setup, but like, it's still entertaining. It just, it doesn't seem very thought together. You mentioned issues with the story. Like, it literally feels like they're just trying to find a way to be like, okay, how do we get a Ouija board into this story? Let's have it come out at a party, and we'll just go from there. It feels very, like a very weak setup for this concept.
They try again. Brandon tries to contact David again, and this time he gets David, because I guess David has a specific like trademark that he uses with Brandon to let him know that it's really him, and he makes a figure 8 with the planchette, so they know it's really David. So they're just having a casual conversation, him, Linda, and David, when Jim is on the couch just making, inappropriate wisecracking comments to the point where apparently the spirit of David gets really, really upset and starts like causing the planchette to go wild. And then to the point where Jim says something like, oh, he makes a joke about David being dead. And all of a sudden the Ouija board flips off of their laps and they hear a explosion, like a popping sound outside. And everyone gets up to look and they notice that Brandon's car tire it's been popped.
Yeah, it's clear that obviously David is not pleased with the outcome of the situation and that somehow some spectral force has popped the tire. And what I appreciate about Brandon is he straight up says to Jim, he's like, "You caused that spectro to pop my tire." And everyone's like, "Go fuck yourself, dude." Like, this is all about like a crock of shit. At least Jim calls it like he sees it. And he straight up just tells Brandon, like, "I think this is a lot of bullshit." And Jim is very unlikable. Like, he's very, very, like, just unpleasant. But he definitely sees things, at least from a perspective that I feel like I can relate to, you know?
Well, yeah, he's the skeptic, and you got to be a skeptic when you're talking about things like Ouija boards or anything to relating to like the supernatural. It's one of those things that we don't really have all the answers to, so you definitely want to question what someone is telling you about this specific. Ouija board. Have you ever played with the Ouija board, Roger?
Yes, but, like, I mean, aren't they, like, mass-produced? Like, what? So confused.
Hasbro or Parker Brothers puts them out. I mean, you could go in
Yeah.
toys. You could used to be able to go in Toys R Us and buy a fucking Ouija board.
Yeah, it's strange to me that there's still such an allure to it, and people are so drawn in by the idea. And like again, this movie is really trying to lean into the mystic like qualities of the Ouija board, and I don't know. It seems like something that's been tread on so much in the years to follow. Like, isn't there even that movie that came out within the last 10 years that was called Ouija board or Ouija or
It
something?
was called Ouija.
Ouija, yeah, and it was definitely like a popcorn flick for teens, you know, and
So that studio paid the extra money to get the rights to use the name in their title,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But yeah, so there's a big confrontation between Jim and Brandon outside of his vehicle, and Brandon basically unleashes on Jim and calls him a fucking loser. And they almost get into a physical altercation, but it's broken up. And apparently Brandon leaves because we cut to later that night. Linda and Jim are getting ready for bed. She expresses her extreme displeasure with Jim for starting shit with Brandon. And he is like, well, what did you want me to do? Was I just supposed to sit there and take it? And she's like, oh, I guess you're right. And he says, I'm sorry. And again, she says she loves him again. And he says, I know. He never tells this broad he loves her. But they make up. They get in bed and they cuddle. And we do cut to a zoom in on their living room. And we see that Brandon left the Ouija board at their place. And I don't know if I buy that. Like, if this Ouija board was so damn important to him, would he just really just leave it
Yeah,
there?
no, I love how this scene starts and like Tawny Katane is furious and her hair is big and it's like red and filled with anger. And then like Jim gives her this like half-assed excuse for needing to like defend himself against Brandon. And so quickly she's like, "You're right." Like she doesn't have a whole lot of depth to her, Linda.
No. Well, this Jim character, he really is just a
Yeah.
despicable.
He gets a little better as it goes on, but
He does, and I know they gave he does have a character arc, that comes into full force. But God, the first half of this film, you were like, this guy's a fucking asshole. What does she see in him? And not that Brandon's any better, but come
yeah,
on.
it's Tawny fucking Katane. She can have any man she wants. This next scene that comes up here, I've got to say, is kind of a standout sequence for me. Overall, in the great course of the film, I think this might be the one that got the biggest reaction out of me. It starts off a little weird, this whole scene at the construction sequence, and it goes back and forth, kind of, it cuts between this and another scene. But what it's eventually, inevitably building up to, I have to say, is one of my favorite moments within the film. So I really appreciate this specific sequence overall and what it's building to. I think it's rather well executed, and I'm happy that the character that gets killed off first is one of the more annoying characters in the film.
He's at his works. He's at the work construction site. Apparently he's a construction worker. He's building a home. Lloyd is there. He realizes he lost his hammer, which really is a hatchet. I mean, he calls it a hammer throughout the film, and I guess there is the hammer end up side of it, but it's a hatchet. He lost it, so fucking Lloyd throws his at him, and it nearly hits him in the fucking head. I would be pissed.
Oh, I would have been fucking livid. I'd been like, you could have killed me. I have a prominent nose. What if I would have turned too fast? You could have chopped my fucking nose off.
Well, they take a lunch break and they lay on, this bench that's under a scaffold of drywall, which we see the camera slowly zoom up and reveal that Jim's lost hatchet hammer is up on top of this drywall that's suspended on a scaffold. Okay. Then we do cut, but you're right. It cuts in between scenes because we cut to Linda getting a message on an answering machine about her test results coming back and that she needs to call them to get the results. And then we get she gets a message from Brandon telling her, "Hey, I left my Ouija board at your place. Can you please bring it to class tomorrow?"
Let's talk about this bow on top of her head real fast.
Ugh.
Let's talk about this big purple fucking bow. It's so distracting. It looks like straight out of a Whitney Houston music video. It's gigantic.
She definitely wants to dance with somebody with that big ass bow on her hair. But she instead of like packing the Ouija board up and taking it to back to Brandon, she decides to sit on the couch and use it by herself, which Brandon at the beginning of the film warned, not to use Ouija boards alone, right? So she's ignoring his advice. So she tries to contact David, and to her surprise, she gets him. And there is this weird like conversation that she's having about choosing his parents. Did you understand this? Like she's like, "No, David, would you like to choose your parents?" First of all, she asks him if she knows what he's talking about in terms of, or if he knows what she's talking about in terms of the test results. And he goes to yes. And she's like, "Oh, they're positive, correct?" And it goes to yes. And then she's like hinting around that maybe he could like be their kid. Did you get this?
Yeah, it's very, very weird.
She's like, "David, would you like to?" And it immediately goes to no. And she's like, "Why not?" And he basically spells out that he doesn't like Jim. I mean, this is this broad's first time playing with this Ouija board. And the first thing she's going to ask if the spirit wants to be her child.
It's very strange. And then she's like, "Go, David, you should know how to keep a grudge." And he goes to yes. So she's having this very like casual conversation with a spirit, and it seems to be all okay. Meanwhile, over at the construction site, his kooky friend Lloyd is discussing with Jim about the fact that Brandon was once his best friend. He's giving him all this backstory on it. And you're kind of learning a bit about this relationship, which I do appreciate, and it does make for at least these two characters to have a little more explanation as to like why they're such fucking dicks to each other whenever around each other. And you learn that Jim was in med school at one point, so a lot of these jabs that Brandon is making at Jim do seem really like kind of shitty and cutting and intentional. Like earlier when he said like I was just defending myself, like a lot of the things that Brandon has been saying to Jim does seem very provoking when you learn this backstory on him. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, Brandon definitely knows the right things to say to get under Jim's skin. And any comments that he makes about Jim being a loser or not being very smart, it all goes back to the fact that he did drop out of med school. And again, it's very intentional that he is trying to provoke Jim and get a rise out of him, because I mean that there's this rivalry between them. He's still very up. He's not pleased that Jim and Linda are together, as we do find out, and he does admit later in the film. So there's this moment where, Jim gets up and we know something's going to happen because we keep seeing that hatchet. And, you don't know. I thought maybe the hatchet was going to fall, and hit one of them. But what ends up happening is Jim gets up as Lloyd is laying back and puts the hat over his face like he's going to take a nap. And Jim's like, "Come on, you lazy ass, get up. We got work to do." And, just prodding him, when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the fucking scaffolding that's above them falls and crushes poor Lloyd to death. And there is a very, unsettling scene where Jim rushes over and starts pulling the drywall and stuff off of Lloyd's body. And he basically gets to see Lloyd spit out blood and take his last breath.
I think the shot of the scaffolding and drywall falling on Lloyd is actually very effective. Probably my favorite moment in the movie, in the sense of just overall, like if you're going to look at horror factor, like this movie really isn't what I would call scary. There's very few moments in this film that are genuinely scary. It's fun. It's a popcorn flick. I enjoy watching it. But it's really, the scare factor is pretty minimal. But this moment got me to jump. It made me react, and it's pretty brutal. Like you don't see any the wreckage like sticking out of his body or anything, but when you see it land on him, you see that it definitely like crushes him in the torso, and it just looks really brutal, and it's really well played. I really enjoyed this moment.
Yeah, it is definitely brutal. It's startling. Like I said, I like the little build up because something's going to happen. And in my mind, like I said, I was like, okay, the hatchet's going to fall down and almost hit one of them or hit one of them on the head or do something. I did not expect the whole fucking scaffold to fall on top of poor Lloyd, but Lloyd was rather annoying. So, sorry, Lloyd, good riddance.
Yeah.
Back at the apartment, fucking Linda is just obsessing over this Ouija board because now she's contacting David again. And I guess in order for him to prove to her that he's real, the first thing he spells out is ring. Ringe. And she's like, what do you mean ring? Are you talking about my diamond ring that I lost? And he goes to yes. And she's like, you know where it's at? And he goes to yes. And where? And he spells out drain, misspells it, but she is able to realize it spells drain. And tells her it's in the bathroom drain. So fucking Miss Plumber, fucking Tawny Katane becomes a fucking plumber, and she goes into the bathroom and is able to take the sink apart and find her fucking diamond ring in the fucking sink.
And she just leaves it afterwards too, which I love. No, but I needed this scene because, like I said, leading up to this point, the whole explanation and backstory for the Ouija board has not really like been selling me in the overall like scare factor of the potential of what could be, and this scene, at least now, that there is definitely a presence. It's not just people moving their hands around fooling each other. Like, you now have proof that there is a presence. He tells her the ring's in the sink. The ring is in the sink. She's pretty fucking happy about herself getting that ring back, and I would be too. Tawny Katane with those long nails, and she's trying to like pick up the ring with her fucking like claw nail, and she like breaks it. But yeah, no, I like this little moment, and I like that it kind of sets the groundwork that there really is something more. It's not just in their heads.
So she gets the ring out with a toothbrush, which I thought was kind of gross. I don't know whose toothbrush that was, but she's sticking it in the drain. I'm like, ugh. Hopefully it was Jim's, because as she turns around, she sees his reflection in the mirror behind her, and it startles her to the point where she's like, don't fucking sneak up on me ever again. And his reaction to her here is like very off-putting. I mean, this is a grown woman, right? And he literally scolds her like she's a child for cussing.
Yeah, well, there's a few issues I have with this. First of all, it is the way that he responds to her, because it very much seems like he has expectations from her as a woman. And it's like, go fuck yourself, man. Like, you've been talking like a truck driver this whole time. You've been chain smoking, drinking beer. Like, worry about yourself. You got your own fucking demons to work through. Don't worry about how she's talking. But the other issue I have is like, so you start to get the idea, like you're basically informed that there is like an ever growing presence in and around Linda under the influence of this force, this spirit, this demon. And the only thing you're really given to take away from it is like that she's occasionally like, go fuck yourself. Like every once in a while she like gets angry, but like it's like when she's startled, every time it happens it's pretty much when she's startled in like a reflection or something. And it's just how I would react on a regular day with somebody. Like, oh shit, what the fuck's your problem? Like, so it just doesn't seem like enough to really imply to me that there's something wrong with her. Like, I'm not picking up on it yet.
No. Well, the problem is we haven't spent that much time with the character yet, so we don't know. We, the audience, have no idea that she doesn't cuss. We've only been in one scene with her. Like, if they wanted it to like startle the audience or make the audience think, "Oh, what something's not right with her," then they should have mentioned it early on in the film. There should have been some little thing that said that, "Oh, Linda's she never cut." But for us to get our first knowledge of that by him scolding her like she's a little toddler, was not the right way to go about it, in my opinion. And he just comes off as a total fucking prick in the scene. And I get it. His friend, he just saw his friend die. Okay, I understand that. But the way he talks to her and talks down to her, and like you said, yeah, like there's some like sort of misogynistic undertones to it. Because it's like, oh, I didn't know you knew how to plumb. When did you take up plumbing? And she's really excited about her ring. She's like, well, look, you remember David? He told me, and he's like, David. And she's like, yeah, the spirit in the. He's like, I don't need this right fucking now. And storms out. And she goes after him. And she's like, well, what's the matter? And he tells her that Lloyd was killed in an accident. And of course, she's like, oh my God, that's so terrible. I told you, I don't like you working that job. It's so dangerous.
I do like at least that this conversation wraps up on like a touching note. Because like yes, they have moments where like he's kind of shitty to her. There's moments where they kind of butt heads a bit, but like at least you do get to see this moment of her like comforting him, and he is like as a male he's showing emotions, which I'm happy about that at least. Like he's crying over his friend dying, and so it's kind of a genuine, sensitive moment by the end of it. It just starts weird. It starts on like that really hostile note, but when you kind of explore his feelings and what he just went through, like not saying like it's okay. I get where he's coming from more.
Yeah, yeah. And he doesn't necessarily cry in this particular scene because that again, his lack of emotions and his coldness comes into play. And I think that's part of the character arc as the film goes on,
Yeah,
as we see him becoming more emotional. But this particular scene, he's not crying. He's literally like kind of stone faced.
he's hurting. He's hurting over it, but
He's
he's not
hurting, but
expressing
it's
it.
not like, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. There, it does cut to this really awkward, like out of nowhere moment where all of a sudden it's an aerial zoom from the Ouija board to her now all of a sudden in bed in the middle of the day, and she like wakes up and is frightened, like lets out a scream because she sees her reflection in the mirror, and then she realizes she has morning sickness, so she runs in the bathroom and we are treated to hearing her puke. And of course, this is just reiterating in her mind that she, in fact, is pregnant. And it's kind of this moment where we realize, hey, she's taken the Ouija board's word that
yeah.
she's pregnant. She's never calls the doctor or the hospital back to find out the results for sure. And again, this comes into play later on as well, which I kind of liked, honestly.
Same. And I gotta say, for these moments here, you start to get them more and more. You get these POV shots from from the spirit's perspective as it moves through the room, and it is kind of awkward. But I also think it's like one of the more standout aspects of the movie in the sense of the stylistic decisions. It's similar to what you saw from Night of the Demons, but that was more like sporadic and like really like intense and highly energized, and this is more like dreamy and almost distorted as it kind of like floats around her around the bed and moving through the house and everything, and I like that. I really like the score they layer on top of these moments, the demonic POV. It's very dreamy, it's very haunting, and I even with it being like a fake out scare where she sees her reflection, I still felt like this was a moment that kind of knew what it was going for and accomplished the goal. I like this little moment.
I like the moment as well. I feel like it's in an awkward place in the film.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like literally just kind of stuck in there. It doesn't flow well from the scene before.
Right.
That was my issue with it. I do think it's a very well done. I like the camera flight, the aerial camera zooming through the house or through the apartment and kind of getting a close up on her. I like it. I just feel like it was a really awkwardly placed scene.
Yeah.
We cut to Lloyd's funeral. Everyone's there, and as Jim and Linda leave, they are approached by perhaps the most pointless character of any film we've seen that we reviewed in the last year. I don't know if you agree, but this just comes so out of like left field, and I kind of get what they were going for, but to me, this particular subplot point with this detective, whatever the fuck his name is, Detective Dewhurst. I was like, oh, and he just shows up awkwardly in really awkward moments, and like nothing becomes of the character. Like this is literally a pointless character. Now, I get what they were going for. Basically, he approaches Jim, and long story short, because this thing goes on for fucking ever, and I was just really getting tired of the references and the allusions to Vegas and magicians that he keeps talking about. I'm like, get to the fucking point. This is a 10-minute scene. He's like, oh, have you been to Vegas? There's a set of magicians there that are among the best I've ever seen. And he calls them Sigmund and Roy. And it's not Sigmund and Roy, it's Siegfried and Roy. But anyways, the whole point of this 10-minute conversation is that he thinks that Lloyd was murdered because upon investigation, he finds out that the scaffolding ropes were cut with a hatchet. And he's like, have you found your hatchet yet, Jim? And long story, again, basically the whole thing is he is suspicious that Jim had something to do with the murder of Lloyd, or that Jim was the intended target of Lloyd. And you're building up to this moment where you think, oh God, this is going to be kind of interesting. This whole subplot of, is Jim really, like, could he really be the killer, or could this be like it goes nowhere. Jim's like, oh, well, I don't have the hatchet. And the detective is like, okay, have a nice day, and walks away and just pops up a couple more times randomly.
Two things to take away from the funeral scene. The good thing, Tawny Katane in that hat. That black fedora hat with those gold earrings. She looks great. Um, the bad thing I take away from this scene is the introduction of this character. The lieutenant is so aggressive, like right from the start. He's very aggressive. And this whole lead-in about magic and Sigmund and Roy is very bloated. And you can tell they're trying to be like, let's really establish this character here. And like, he doesn't really do a lot. So let's make sure, like, when we show him, we make him sound important by just giving him more things to say. Like, that's what it feels like, because he really does not serve any purpose, though he's just extremely, like, aggressive and tries to be very intimidating with Jim, and it just doesn't land at all. Like, he's never actually intimidating. He just comes off kind of kooky and weird and just does not fit the flow of the story.
Mm-mm. Not at all. Not at all. Again, I think it would have been a very interesting choice if they would have played up maybe the suspicion on Jim, like, oh, could he, with the audience, to be like, could Jim really be the killer? And this is all just the Ouija board stuff is just a guise, and it's really Jim, taking the opportunity to off these people to try to maybe blame Brandon or something, but it never really goes there.
Yeah. I think there's things here that they could have cut down significantly to have given this more.
They could have cut the entire character of this detective Dewhurst out of the film.
But I also think it's an intriguing, like angle. Like, it gives it, again, I like to say it all the time. I like it when they're raising the stakes. This raises the stakes because now there is a very human element to the story where, like, obviously the law is potentially coming for this character atop, like, these fantastical witchcraft Ouija board spirits that, like, nobody's going to believe when the law actually comes for him, So I guess it's one of those things that I wish it would have just played a bit more of a major factor and been more of a threat for Jim, or made it seem like he was in a position that he could, I don't know, be arrested or something. Because it's just, as it's played in the movie, it's not used enough to really feel like a threat.
Now Linda contacts David again to ask if he caused the accident. Of course, he says no. And she gets startled by a phone call. And it is Brandon asking her why she did not bring the Ouija board to class. She has not been to class. And this is when she says, Brandon, I totally forgot because I was at the funeral with Jim for Lloyd. And Brandon's like, okay, that's understandable. And he goes into this kind of tirade about, did he cry at the funeral? And she doesn't answer him. And he says, that's what I expect. You know that he has nothing but ice in his veins. He's a cold-hearted person. And that's just how he's always been. She ignores that, and she launches into telling him that she has been contacting David by herself. And he gets ready to tell her, you should not be doing that, when her phone just disconnects. Phone died, and all of a sudden Jim comes up behind her and sneaks up on her again, and she explodes, this time very, very violently and aggressively towards him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's another explosive reaction, and it causes her to, like, kind of break down. And there's a moment where, like, she lays her head in his lap, and he kind of comforts her. So it's nice to see a little more I don't know, a little bit more of a pleasant energy between the two of them, because everything up to this point has seemed very shaky. You look at them and you think, like, why are these two together? Like, there's so much animosity between them. You don't really see a lot of pleasantries between Linda and Jim over the course of the movie.
And this is when she tells him that she's pregnant. And he even mentions, oh, so you went and got the test results. And she's like, no, I just know that I am. And he seems genuinely happy about her being pregnant. And again, this is the third time in the film where she tells him, I love you. And what does he say? I know. And you can tell it bothers her this time. She does give like this facial reaction when he says, I know. You can tell it really bothers her that he will not say, I love you back to her.
This leads to a smoky dream sequence that this does look straight out of a fucking Whitesnake music video. Like, they're like, we got Tawny Katane, fill it with smoke. I mean, I need there to be so much smoke in this room that you can't fucking see 3 feet in front of you. And all she's doing is walking. That's all she's doing. She's just walking down hallways, walking into rooms, walking up to coffins. Coffins that have Ouija boards on them. And then she's just standing there looking down, and all of a sudden these hands come up and choke her. And that's it. Just a dream sequence. Doesn't really serve a purpose.
Well, and we know it's a dream sequence from the start. So it wasn't like, ooh, this is, we know because of the way they filmed it. You're right, with the smoke and everything, damn well this is a dream sequence. So it's a kind of a cool scene, but again, is it necessary? Was it necessary? Probably not.
No, they needed to build this kind of, like, if they're going to do these kinds of moments, they needed to kind of build upon that more. Almost kind of what you see in like an Insidious. You know how there's this alternate kind of other world where all the spirits exist and they kind of bleed through. That would have been cool for this, kind of tapping into that a bit. But they don't give you enough of these moments for it to really be a thing. You can tell they literally just wanted to have a moment with Tawny Katane walking through smoke in a dress, looking pouty lipped and big haired.
As she does through most of the movie.
And she does it well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that her career didn't really take off. Well, no, I'm not. I mean, who am I kidding?
Drugs. Troy, drugs.
Back to her by herself at home. She's playing with the Ouija board again. She's contacting David to tell him that she is giving the board back to Brandon that night. And he immediately goes to no. And she sets the Ouija board down, gets up, goes to the kitchen. Now, this is one of the scenes. I said there's two scenes from this film that I remembered seeing this film, 40 years ago now. I did remember this scene of the knife. She's in the kitchen getting something out of the refrigerator, and one of her butcher knives falls off of the knife rack, sticks in the ground, and then a bottle of ketchup strategically knocks itself over and pours onto the floor to make a puddle under the knife to make it look like it's bleeding. And she runs to the door to try to get out, and it's locked. And then you just get this like hard cut to the exterior of the house, and you just hear her scream.
It's a very dramatic cutaway in Scream.
There's a couple of these very dramatic cutaways and screams.
It does make the movie feel occasionally very cheap. This film, it makes some bold choices at times to cut away from key moments that I feel like could have really given us more, shown us more. It's almost kind of a trope over the course of the movie. I feel like in some ways they kind of chicken out of showing you certain things by just cutting away. I don't know. It definitely makes the movie feel a little bit cheaper.
The audience is left to question, okay, what happened to her? Did she get killed? What's going on? And we go back to Jim at his construction site. Brandon shows up to confront Jim to ask him if Linda has been acting weird. Has she been cussing? Has she been moody? Has she been preoccupied? Because he's noticed that she's not attending her classes anymore. And Jim is like, well, yeah, so what? And Brandon launches into this long, drawn out explanation, explaining to Jim that he thinks that she is becoming possessed by the spirit in the Ouija board, and he calls it progressive entrapment. It is when the spirit starts off being very pleasant and very nice to the user, which we saw. We saw a couple of episodes of that with, David, quote unquote, being nice to Linda, telling her where her ring was and things like that. And He is like, I really want to bring a medium to your apartment because this could get ugly if she continues to be obsessive about the Ouija board. And Jim is being again very skeptical. He's basically laughing in Brandon's face, like laughing. He's like, "You are fucking ridiculous. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life." And Brandon's like, "Well, how would I know all of this stuff about Linda, about what she's going through, how she's been acting the last couple of weeks?" And Jim tells him, "Hey, that has nothing to do with progressive entrapment. It has everything to do with her being pregnant." Of course, Brandon is not happy about this. He's like, "Fuck, are you going to marry her?" And Jim's like, "I don't know, probably." And Brandon explodes on him. He's like, "You don't even fucking love her. You're going to leave her once you get sick of her." And they get into a confrontation where it looks like Jim is about ready to hit him with his fucking hammer. What stops him is a coworker comes in and tells Jim that he has a phone call, and it's the landlady calling about Linda. So he goes and takes the call, and it is the lovely Rosemary from the Dick Van Dyke Show. It just tickles my funny bone that she's in this, looking just as made up and as she did in the Dick Van Dyke Show with that mole and her bright eyeshadow and everything. She has that same voice. Yeah, she's very concerned. And Jim's like, "What happened?" And the landlady's like, "She's okay, but she's very scared." So he asks if he can speak to her. The landlady gives the phone to Linda, and Linda gets on the phone and tells Jim that she is very scared, that David is the one that is causing all this mischief. And he's like, "Okay, I'll be home as soon as I can." Hangs up, and he looks at Brandon and he says, "Yes, you can bring your medium by my apartment tonight." And boy, does he bring a medium.
Oh my God, the star of the fucking show, Bella the Ball.
Zarabeth is what
Zarabeth.
she goes, but Zarabeth. How do you feel about Zarabeth?
Listen, Zarabeth is, I think, really what I needed for this movie at this point. Because up to this point, I would literally describe this film with one word, and that word is beige. Everything about Witchboard thus far has been very beige to me. The color palette, to just the overall kind of like levels of blandness of most of the attempted scares and so forth. It just hasn't had any spunk or oomph or anything that like really kind of makes it stand out. And Zarabeth very much does stand out, even though she's in the film for a very brief period of time. I appreciate having a character that doesn't feel like they're kind of constructed out of cardboard. You know, like I mean, not like any of the characters in the movie are bad, but they're all kind of just going through the motions. You know, there's a love triangle. A lot of the rationale and reasoning, the decisions they make don't seem completely like realistic oftentimes. They just seem very phoned in, I guess. Like, and from a writing standpoint, it's not like the actor's fault. It's just the way that these characters are written. So now we have this character that comes into play who is unlike anybody in this movie. She's fucking crazy, cuckoo bananas. She's so loud. She's so big. She's so colorful. And I really think this movie needed to inject this. So I'm appreciative of her presence. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think she teeters on that fine line of being like annoying versus being a very welcomed part of the film, because you are right, the characters in this film are pretty paper thin in terms of their presentation, and then you get this just it's almost like she's in a different movie. I mean, we're introduced to her and she's popping bubble gum and just being loud and obnoxious, cracking jokes throughout the entire thing. And they proceed, and you can tell right away Jim is like, "You got to be fucking kidding me. Who is
Yeah.
this?" She
The
looks like
outfit here, the makeup. It is not a subtle performance by any means.
no, no. And Jim even says, "Where'd you find her? The fucking circus?" And he's like, "Just trust me, she's the best medium in Southern California." So they proceed to do a seance. And there's a little line where she's like, "Oh, I can't go through with it. I forgot my crystal ball." And they're looking at her and she's like, "Oh, it's just some psychic humor." Ah, she just loves to crack jokes.
She does. I wouldn't trust this broad whatsoever, though. I'm gonna be honest. Like if she walked in, I would be like, "Girl, Like, there's no way I'm going to entrust you with this duty.
I do have to say, I like the fact that they present her as being so nonchalant about the whole thing. I think in other films where we've seen psychics and seance scenes, the medium is usually 99% of the time very serious, right? Think of like Lin Shaye's character in Insidious and all of these seance scenes we've seen in movies. The psychic is super, super serious about it. This Zarabeth is not at all. She's very flighty and nonchalant about the whole thing. But with that said, she is able to make contact with David. And there is this like seance scene. It's not the most effective seance scene I've ever seen, but she's talking in David's voice. And, Brandon asks her very first question, how old are you? Because that's a key question because David is 10 and she's able to say, I'm 10. And Brandon's like, why have you been terrorizing Linda? And he says, I love Linda, but she hurt me because she won't talk to me anymore. Because of Jim. He does point that out. David does say it's because of Jim. Brandon's like, you need to leave her alone. I'm taking the Ouija board home tonight, and you are not to contact Linda ever again. And in a sad little voice through Zarabeth, he says, I'm sorry. I'll leave. I never meant to hurt anybody. And this pulls at Linda's heartstrings, apparently, because she darts out of her seat, even though she was told at the beginning to stay in your seat, right? She darts out of her seat and she's like, no, you don't have to go. And it breaks the contact with David. All the beer cans that they stacked up in front of the window, they all come tumbling down. And Zarabeth comes too.
I like this whole sequence. I liked the whole thing. I thought it was fun. I liked her performance when she went from that really kind of eccentric character to like the voice of the child. I thought it was like the echo that they put on her voice. It was fun. It was kind of exactly the level of shtick of I would want from this kind of film. You know what I mean? And the rotations around the table, the lighting, they did a good job. So I appreciate that we finally kind of got into the whole like occult aspect, I guess, or the witchcraft aspect of the Witchboard. At least they're kind of going there with it. It definitely was needed by this point, I would say.
Yeah, it's a fun little scene. And again, it's mainly due to the Zarabeth character. She's pleased with herself. She knows, she says, hey, my job's done. She's like, oh my God, I'm having a vision though. And they're like, what? And she's like, it's a vision of me going home. And she just chuckles. She's like, oh, it's more psychic humor. So Brandon's taking her home. And in the car, she asks him if he's heard of this particular word. And he's like, yeah, it's Portuguese. Why? And she's like, well, what's it mean? And it means someone evil. And she's like, well, was David even Portuguese? And you said he was only 10 years old, right? And Brandon's like, yeah, why? And she's like, because that's a lot he was real tough. So he must be taking his vitamins. And then she has another joke. She's like, I see danger ahead. And he's like, for who? And she's like, you, if you miss my house. More psychic humor. He gets to her house, drops her off. She tells him to stay by the phone. I'm going to look into this. If I can come up with anything, I'll call you as soon as I find out what the deal is, because something just doesn't feel right about this whole situation. So she gets into her house. Her house is, decorated with a bunch of creepy paper mache masks and shit. And she opens this book and, reads something. We don't really see what it is, but we do see this like creepy man on the page. And as she goes to make the phone call, someone appears behind her. We don't see who, but she turns around and she's like, oh my God, it's you. And this person proceeds to, through their POV, chase her upstairs. She gets in her bedroom, shuts the door. The person's pounding on the door, trying to get in. And she finally backs away from the door. And all of a sudden, the person is apparently in her bedroom because whoever it is takes is it an axe?
Is it the hammer axe from...
I think it was either the axe or there was a shot of the swords that she had on her wall. So I'm wondering if it was that too. But regardless, hits her with it, causes her to fall out the window and land on a sundial, piece of decorative art that she had on the ledge of her wall below her window. She lands on that and is impaled. I mean, pretty effective scene. This is the other scene that I remember from the film.
I enjoy it. It's a little clunky. Like the whole moment where she turns around, she's just like, it's you. And it's like, it just feels kind of out of nowhere. But, I like her a lot. I like I really like the little conversation in the car, to be honest, because for a moment she kind of breaks her really eccentric character, and she's like asking questions about like, well, was the kid like, how old was the kid? This energy is coming through really strong. Like, it's the kind of banter I guess I would anticipate in this situation. I thought it was very well handled. But this whole moment with her, it just feels a little rushed. I like the character. I wish that we squeezed a little more juice from her before she was, dispatched. My big issue with the kill, though, is she runs up to the window. She locks herself in. It's at the door. It seems like it can't come in the room, but then all of a sudden, like, it's in the room. Like, it's not like there was even a point where she was safe. And then it launches her from the window, and she has her back against the window, and then all of a sudden it cuts to her like being launched out the window, and she's like blatantly like diving out face first. And it's kind of jarring. It really threw me off. It was a little jarring. I know I'm being nitpicky here. I thought it was a good kill. I didn't think it was the best kill, but I enjoyed it.
I mean, it's an awkward scene. It's awkwardly edited together. Yeah, I would agree there. Next morning, Brandon is wakes up and his TV is playing a news report, basically that's saying, hey, this psychic known as Zarabeth died last night, and we're investigating whether it was a murder or a suicide. And he immediately opens his Ouija board box and notices that it's missing. So he rushes to Jim's house and he's like, hey, we need to talk, but you need to meet me on the landing. So Jim agrees. They go out there, and Brandon tells Jim that Zarabeth is dead and that he thinks that David did it. Of course, Jim does not believe him. Jim is very hard to convince that the spirit is real or responsible for anything. Brandon says, you know what? You might not believe me, but this is real, and I'm going to go to Big Bear and investigate this myself, because that is where David says he died, and I might be able to get some answers. Jim's like, you know what? I don't know. I don't know that I buy any of this, but good luck to you. And they shake hands. And it is kind of a little of a bit of a turning moment in the film in terms of both of their character arcs, because they are now starting to at least show some respect and appreciation for each other. The fact that Jim tells him good luck, they shake hands, total opposite of how they started out in the film when they were at each other's throat. So it is kind of a turning point. As Jim watches Brandon leave, he looks out the window and he notices that the detective is parked outside of his house in his car. That detective Dewhurst that just randomly appears.
I appreciate that we have some growth between these characters.
We do. And we get even more growth to the point where I thought they were going to start blowing each other here in a few minutes. But
absolutely.
I would have watched that any day of the week, because they're both they're both handsome enough.
And they're both steadfast in their vow to protect Linda, which I do like that is what kind of brings them back together.
This goddamn Linda, though, we find out she does have the fucking Ouija board.
She is causing all of the problems right now.
Yes. She kept the Ouija board. She just returned the case because she's contacting David again. And she's trying to contact him. And all of a sudden the planchette moves and flies across the thing by itself, and she screams for Jim. He runs to her rescue, but the door is locked, so he has to kick it down. And as he kicks it down, get a scene of her being flung back and forth like a goddamn, I don't know what, but her big old hair is flapping as she's being flung back and forth, and then she goes unconscious. And the landlady shows up, because this nosy broad has to be involved in everything. And he's like, call the ambulance. And he sees the Ouija board and picks it up and opens the window and has perfect aim, because he throws it and it lands right in the fucking trash can from the third story of the house.
Perfectly placed. It lands strategically into the can. It's very well placed. They must have literally had him do that 10 times, though. Because the way it lands, it's I can't even imagine getting it just from close up. It's I don't know. It seems so unbelievable, but whatever. Okay. So this fucking Lieutenant Dewhurst is very much a pain in the ass, because now, so they go to the hospital with Linda because she has a concussion from being thrown around the room violently by the Spectre. And so now, Jim is there waiting for her to be released. And this lieutenant's just sitting there. And okay, I get it, Lieutenant. You got a job to do. You got questions to ask. But he's such a fucking dick about it, because now he's juggling. He's bringing juggling balls. And it seems very much he's just mocking Jim, like if I was Jim, I'd be like, go fuck yourself. What, you want to ask me a question? Ask me a fucking question. Don't waste my time while I'm sitting here waiting for my lovely girlfriend to be released from the hospital after a concussion. Like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, he's asking her, Did you know the Zarabeth? Blah blah blah. And yeah, it's very like, why is he acting so like goofy in this particular moment where he knows that like we don't know how seriously Linda is hurt, right? He doesn't either. They haven't been told anything. She could be on her deathbed, and he is literally juggling in the waiting room, like making light of it. And then he's like, "Oh, her throat was slit with." And how would you know? Okay, this was another thing. How would he know? Because they haven't found the hat. He's saying her throat was slit with the exact same instrument that cut the ropes at the construction site. You would not know that. I'm sorry.
There's no fucking way.
But again, it's all to paint the suspicion on Jim, and it never leads anywhere because now this scene cuts because the doctor comes out and tells Jim that Linda has a concussion, a severe concussion. So it must have been a very traumatic fall. And what does Jim say? This kind of shocked me, but I was like, okay, I like this little twist. Jim's like, well, what about the baby? And the doctor's like, oh, well, she never followed up to get the test results. So I wasn't able to tell her that she is not pregnant.
That fucking bitch.
So it adds that layer of, yeah. So now we do know that like the morning sickness and all of this stuff was caused by the Ouija board. At least that's the inference we're to make. But I was like, oh, fuck. Okay, she's not pregnant. Good, because these two don't need a kid together, honestly.
I'm going to say this, and this may be taboo amongst listeners. Fans of Witchboard may come for me, but up to this point, and really around this area, this is where I started thinking, God, if there is a movie that would do well with a modern day remake, it's this fucking film. Because this movie it suffers from pacing issues, it suffers from lack of budget, and there's so many scenes that feel like they just kind of are like half-mast. like the scene of her, I'll give you an example. The scene of her being thrown around the room when he comes in and he finds her. You can tell they're literally like, okay, Tawny Katane, now when we say action, throw yourself around the room. And she's just like kind of jumping around. Versus like, I don't know, something you would see in a modern production where you see a person fully like being thrown around a room. Like, I don't know. It definitely seems like there's certain things they just couldn't pull off on their budget that they would have wanted to have done on a bigger scale if they could have. I think that a remake of this film would do it very well. Because there are aspects of a cool story in there. It just doesn't translate well, I think, in this specific interpretation of the story. It doesn't really hit all of the time. You know what I mean?
I would agree with you. I think there are definitely elements that could be pulled out of this script and reworked to make it a much more cohesive, effective film. I mean, at least it shows that he did grow, I think, as a screenwriter and a director, because Night of the Demons, I don't think has any of the issues that I have with this film. So I think he took a couple of years because this came out in '86. Night of the Demons was what, '87. So he grew, I think, as a screenwriter and a director, and it definitely shows with Night of the Demons. But this, yeah, there's really good stuff. There really is in this film. But unfortunately, there's also really, I don't want to say bad stuff, but really like mediocre stuff, elements of the film that really drown out the good elements of it at times.
Yeah, it's bogged down by itself so often, whether it be because of the story, because of some of the writing, or because simply that there are just some things that they just can't pull off in a way that's genuinely effective. So it looks like kind of hokey. There's a lot of moments in this that have not aged well and probably didn't even look great when it initially happened. But some of the attempted scares and so forth, ooh.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about stuff not looking well at the final shots of this film. Whew, I don't imagine that looked good then, let alone now. But we are getting there. Okay, so I do like, again, we get more of Jim's character arc as he goes into her room to sit next to her as she's unconscious, and this is the first time, Roger, we see he actually does start to get teary eyed. So he's definitely developing some emotions, and his cold, icy demeanor is definitely being broken down. So I think this is the point where you start to really maybe sympathize or get a little bit more attached to this character, because now he does seem a lot more relatable and human.
I'm here for it. I'm here for him as a man being able to explore his emotions. Yes.
Brandon is rushing out of his house with his overnight bag when he opens the door, and who's on his porch? It's Jim. And Jim is like, I am going with you. We are going to get the bottom of this. The first place we better go is the library. So they go to the library and they get on the microfiche, and they do find the article about little David dying in a boat explosion. But there's really no other information. They do get the parents' name, and they try to call the parents, but there's no listing in the phone book for the parents. So Brandon gets the idea, or Jim gets the idea, that if they go to the cemetery to David's grave, maybe they can talk to the caretaker, and the caretaker will have David's parents' contact information on the on a like a sheet or whatever, the invoice for his grave. So they go to this fucking creepy ass cemetery. Jim immediately hops the cement wall and goes in, and Brandon slowly and hesitantly follows. And I do say, probably one of the more tense scenes in the film.
Oh, I love this sequence. Well,
I know.
first, these guys are ballsy as fuck. Even the fact that they're trying to find the parents of David. Like, what are you going to say to these parents when you encounter them? Like, oh, my girlfriend is being harassed by the ghost of your 10-year-old child. Like, I don't like. What are they going to do upon finding these parents? So that's confusing to me. I do appreciate now in the year 2022, all of this could be summed up in a single Google search. Like they're taking a day trip together as gay lovers do. They're visiting a seaside town as gay lovers do, and they're exploring local cemeteries as gay lovers do. But no, I mean it really is one of those things like that. They put so much effort into this journey. They travel away for the day to get all of this information, and nowadays this simply would not have to be the case. But this location that they come upon, it's worth it because the cemetery is visually one of the most enticing locations that we see over the course of the film. It is like it's like a bog. There's so much fog in this fucking cemetery, and it's very effective. It's silhouettes of tombstones, and it looks like something straight out of Silent Hill. I mean, it looks really fucking good.
It is a nice, visually, it's a nice departure from the bland, like interior apartments settings that we've gotten so far. But I also like that he can't find Jim right away. And there's this moment where he's in the middle of the cemetery. You can tell he's shit faced scared based on the expression on his face. And he hears like a crunch behind him. And we as the audience don't know what to expect. And he looks fucking terrified. And he slowly, with his flashlight, turns around behind him to reveal nothing. But then Jim comes in front of him and grabs him, and it's kind of a really effective little jump scare.
Brandon is definitely the bottom in this relationship by now as well. Like, let's just be clear. Definitely the bottom.
Oh yeah, yeah. He d- well, maybe they're verse. Who knows? Jim says, "Hey, I found David's parents' graves, and they happened to die on the same day David did, but they only died 2 weeks ago." And he's like, "What do you think that means?" And then we cut to the scene in the motel room where the two are shirtless, and Jim doesn't have a toothbrush. He's like, "Hey, do you have an extra toothbrush I can borrow?"
Coming up on the scene, you get a shot of the hotel that literally just says the Wishing Well Motel has phones, and like that's all it has,
Has
phones,
phones.
and I'll take it. I mean, if that's all I get, I'll take it. But yeah, this is the scene, guys, that we've been building up to. I think gay people, you'll know why if you've seen this movie before. This truly is the setup for a gay porn. I've seen it before, time and time again. I have watched these porn clips. It is so ripe for a moment in which Brandon just turns around and bends over and presents himself to Jim. If only they would have gone there, because the chemistry, it's palpable.
Yes, they bond. They bond. They're Jim is being very forthright with the fact that, you know what, I did not steal her from you. And Brandon's like, yeah, I know. I know. And Jim's like, what happened to us? We used to be so close. And Brandon's response is, well, people change. They don't always do the things they did when they were younger. He's like, you know what, Jim? I have to admit to you, it drives me crazy to see you and Linda together. And it's all very like, okay, does it drive you crazy because you want Jim, or what's the deal here? And Jim's like, you're right. I should get out of Linda's life. And then he's like, what does Linda have, or what does Linda see in you that she didn't see in me? And Jim's like, I make her laugh. And Brandon says, well, I made her laugh too. And then Jim makes the joke, oh, but we're not talking about in bed.
That right there, that is exactly the moment when I thought that Brandon was going to start sucking Jim's dick. Like, I was like, it's coming.
Oh yeah, I thought, okay, Jim's gonna whip his dick out and we're gonna get some good oral action. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen. But it is very just, yeah, I mean, a lot of homoerotic undertones, I think. But I do like the scene. So now they're buddies.
Yeah, it's a tender moment between two men with chests exposed, for forging friendship and forgetting past issues and falling in love.
Furry chests
I know,
exposed.
I know.
We get a scene with Linda waking up in the hospital, and she hears a child calling her name. She wanders out into the hallway. We get a jump scare where she sees her reflection in the glass, but then as she turns around, there's the guy with the axe and he chops her head off. It looks so ridiculous.
But I love it. Like, this is the kind of ridiculous. Like, give me more.
It's so corny. Yeah, but she wakes up and it's just a dream, obviously.
Ugh. How many times am I going to see fucking Tawny Katane in a flowing robe in this movie? Like, literally, that should be a drinking game. Every time that you see Tawny Katane in a flowing fucking robe, it's so exaggerated, but I love it.
I think it was half the budget of the movie was her wardrobe, because she's in
Oh,
a
those
different
silken robes.
she's in a different outfit every time you see her. So Jim brought a different Ouija board with him, apparently, and they set it up at the dock where David supposedly died. And they're like, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to find out why exactly David is terrorizing Linda, but we need to do it quickly because she can't be awake, because as long as she's sedated, he's not going to be able to get to her. So we have to do this really quick. They do not know, because it cuts to her basically wide awake, looking great, checking herself out of the hospital. So,
Oh yeah, he's like, isn't she under sedation? He's like, yep, sure is. And then it cuts over and she's like checking herself out. And the doctor's like, I really think you should stay for more tests. And Tawny Katane is like, absolutely fucking not. I'm getting out of here.
So they use the Ouija board, and Brandon's like, who's terrorizing Linda? And he keeps spelling out evil. And Brandon's like, you tell me the truth, David. Did you kill Lloyd and Zarabeth? And it says no. And he's like, well, who did then? And he's like, it spells out evil again. They're like, well, where is this evil at? And it keeps spelling out her, Her. And they're like, what do you mean her? Are you talking about Linda? And it's like, no. So they're like, where is it at? And it spells out her again. And then they lose contact with the spirit. And Jim is like, hey, didn't you say that they're terrible at spelling sometimes? And Brandon's like, yeah. And he's like, it means here. And then all of a sudden, these barrels fall on top of them and knock them into the fucking lake.
I do love that leading up to this, these boys are having this chat with David at this lovely seaside setting. No wonder the fog was so thick the night before, because they're right in a harbor. So, I mean, like, I guess that makes sense why they were in the middle of a fucking, like, fog storm. This whole moment, I actually really thought this was kind of a cool build-up. Like, the whole thing, like, here, he's trying to say here, and then instantly the ropes break and all these barrels come rolling at them. And I thought it was, like, a pretty cool sequence. It builds in a way I did not expect, I'll say that much.
Oh, it does. This kind of surprised me, because a few moments pass. We see that Jim is totally unconscious on the deck. Brandon crawls out of the lake and gets on the dock, and he's walking over to Jim and hears something, and he turns around and immediately has that fucking hatchet embedded in his face. I was a little shocked by this, to be honest
I mean,
with
because
you.
it comes out
It
of
comes
fucking
out of
nowhere.
nowhere. And this is like a lead character that we have followed through the entire film, that is the character that has taken charge of going and finding out exactly what is going on with this entire ordeal. And literally offed with a fucking hatchet to the face.
Yeah, and like you don't even know that the hatchet is like in the vicinity. Like it's not like it cuts to the hatchet. Like it just cuts to that weird POV shot of the specter moving in on him, and all of a sudden a hatchet just gets launched into his forehead, and he's dead, and it's over. So yeah, it's abrupt. It's a very abrupt kill and unanticipated, unexpected. But I guess it's part of the shock factor, so I'll take it.
Definitely, I give it kudos for going there. Because when Jim wakes up, he is obviously he's dazed, so he gets into the water to wash his bloody face off. When all of a sudden, a hand comes out of the water and grabs him, and he pulls the body out and realizes that it's Brandon. And we see Brandon, with the gash in his face. And this is when Jim pulls Brandon out of the water and literally hugs him tightly and cries pretty excessively aggressively. He's like lets out a howl and is just crying. So this is again the evolution of this Jim character being able to express his emotions.
I have some questions about this sequence. My first question is for Jim. Jim, why would you wash your face in that disgusting lake water? You're going to get gangrene. He's washing the wound, the blood off of his face right there in the lake, just pouring that nasty ass water all over his face. So I think that's a bad decision on his part. My other question, as he's washing himself, the hand in the water blatantly comes out and grabs him. Like it grabs him as though it were a living hand. But when he reaches into the water and he finds the body of Brandon, Brandon is clearly deceased. Like, I think he's probably been dead for a hot minute ever since that axe hit him in the forehead, which I'm assuming is a while ago because, Jim's been passed out on the fucking dock. So, tell me how did that hand manage to clutch onto Jim's shirt?
I had the same question, and you know what? I just rolled with it. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It makes zero sense because yeah, when he does pull Jim out of out of the water, it is obvious that the dude is dead and has been dead for a while because the face, the skin on his face is very pale now. That gash, I mean, you're not going to survive that gash. It was deep all the way across his face. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But it did.
Yeah. This leads to another very lovely shot. There are some really pretty shots in this movie, especially when you see the fluidity of some of those POV shots like this one. It comes upon Linda in that goddamn fucking silken robe, flowing, billowing as though she's Belle in the Beast's West Wing, as she ascends the staircase and enters the house. And the camera does this beautiful sweep up to her window, where you see her enter the room and go into the bathroom. And I just think some of these shots are surprisingly effective, considering that there are a lot of other shots in this movie that do feel very flat.
She tries to she gets the Ouija board out of the trash can, I think, right? Isn't that what she does? And so she tries to contact David again, and he doesn't answer her. And then we cut to some random scene with Jim in a, what is it supposed to be, like an occult shop or something?
I have no idea what's going on here, but this sultry vixen, given Jim sage advice without any introduction or explanation whatsoever, she's given him key points about like the backstory of who we learned the villain to be. This Carlos Malfighter, or whatever his last name is. Malfighter? How do you say it?
Malfader, I think. Yeah, we find out
Malfader.
that he was a notorious mass murderer who killed 9 people with an axe.
And lived in the goddamn house that they're living in now. And like you get this key piece of information from this random damsel, this broad, in this sexy red outfit, looking hot. I mean, she's looking good, but she comes fucking out of nowhere, and I wanted more about her.
What is she supposed to be?
I think she runs like an occult store. But I needed that introduction. Like, why would you give me what I find to be this very important information on this random woman who I've never seen before?
I don't know, but we find out all of the information about the killer from her. And Jim immediately goes to a payphone, calls the hospital to ask for Linda, and he finds out that she has checked herself out. So we cut back to her in the apartment taking a shower, and she basically gets locked in the shower when the hot scalding water comes on and starts scolding her, and she has to grab a towel and bust the shower door with it and get out that way. But I mean, and we get Tawny Katane butt ass naked, full frontal,
Full bush.
full bush.
I mean, she's getting out of that shower with her just spreading her legs, climbing over that glass. And I was like, that is definitely Tawny Katane's vagina. Think of all of the horny teenage boys at that time who are like, oh, we gotta get Witchboard. You'll see Tawny Katane's vagina. Like, I'm sure people were pumped about this back in the day, back when she was writhing on top of cars and dancing in smoke and all those things. I'm surprised they didn't have her dance in this movie. Like, it's they could have fed it into one of those dream sequences. Her just dancing around, spinning in a dress.
Oh, I would have loved to seen that. I mean, that should have been the whole climax of the movie.
That should have been like the final credits. It's just her and the demon dancing. Yeah.
So she runs out of the bathroom, runs into her bedroom, but the bedroom door slams shut and locks her in, and she can't get out. So she's frantically, trying to figure out what she's going to do when she sees the Ouija board that's on the bed now, and she backs away and screams and turns around, and we see the face of Malfador, the intimidating looking fellow. And she screams. We get one of those, again, cut to the exterior of the house, and we hear her scream.
Oh, it's a bad scream, too. It's real bad. Like, this is the worst scream in the movie. It doesn't even sound like Tawny fucking Katane.
Apparently some time passes. I don't know if it's supposed to be the next day or later that day, but Jim gets home and rushes into the apartment, and the apartment has literally been ransacked. I mean, the wallpaper is ripped, looks like it was ripped with claws. Everything's overturned. It's just it's just in disarray. When all of a sudden, Tawny Katane comes out of nowhere with a fucking axe, wearing a sensible suit and top hat.
She's wearing a goddamn fucking fedora. I'm like, listen, is this like the killer's style? He's like, now that I've taken over Tawny Katane, I'm gonna take out her boyfriend in style. Wearing a fedora. Like, it really is so unexpected, and it makes her so much less intimidating. Like, Tawny Katane, I don't look at Tawny Katane and think intimidation factor to begin with. The hair is wild, so why would you restrain the hair under that fucking fancy fedora? It just seems like a weird choice. It looks like she's dressed up to, again, do a music video. It's not what I would anticipate for the final sequence. Like, make her look crazy. Make her hair all big. Shred her clothes. Make her naked. Just have her be butt-ass naked with an axe. Anything else. But this seems so fucking weird. It was, I think, the worst choice they could have made.
It was a very awkward. Yeah, I use that word again. But yeah, this whole get up just does not land. But she is now possessed by this Malfador guy, and she is like beating the shit out of Jim, and to the fact where she gets like on top of him and starts choking him, and he is able to get a letter opener that's laying on the floor next to him, and he's getting ready to stab her, and the person now is talking through Malfador's voice, and he's like, "What are you waiting for, Jim? Do it."
Thankfully, that fucking hat comes off real fast, though, Troy.
That the hat does come off, and the hair is just like red as a fire engine, getting bigger and bigger.
And she is, I gotta say, it's gotta be the dancer background, but when it comes to the physicality of the fighting, she actually does quite a good job. She's really into it. And it's her. She's on his back, spinning around. I mean, the fight goes on for a second. She's trying to sell it the best she can.
She's doing a good job here. I even think that she does a good job with this particular exchange that they have, her facial expressions and everything. She's talking through a different voice, but basically he says, "I love you, Linda." And then she has this moment where she like comes to him. She's like, "Jim." He's like, "Oh." And then the demon comes back and like slams his head on the floor. And it's like, "It's not that easy, Jim." And basically starts to launch into the fact that, "Jim, I thought you were smart. You realize that you are the one that was a portal the whole time, not Linda. And that's why I have been terrorizing you by terrorizing Linda and killing your friends."
A shocking twist.
A shocking twist. And he starts to choke him again. So he does shove the letter opener into her thigh. At the same time, who the fuck shows up out of nowhere?
God damn it. That fucking Lieutenant whatever his name is. He's so not memorable. His name does not stick with me. That obnoxious lieutenant shows up and causes all kinds of problems and mischief.
Luckily, though, he shows up and he's like pulls the gun on David or on Jim, and it's like, "I'm going to shoot you. You pause right there. What have you done?" And he asks, "Are you okay, Miss whatever her last name, Linda?" And she gets up and whaps him with the fucking fireplace poker, and he has the most ridiculous reaction. Like he stumbles backwards and then like falls on the floor and is like incapacitated the rest of the movie. And literally all she did was like hit him in the chest with this fireplace poker.
I do like though that like at this point she just boldly makes it clear that she is not Linda. Like now the lieutenant has to be aware that things are not as he suspected and that Jim is not like at fault because she is no holds bars, just fully possessed at this point and without even hesitation takes the lieutenant out with the fire poker. He's down but he's not killed. He's like on the floor and he's watching everything unfold. So like clearly this cop is going to see that this broad is possessed by a demon. Like there's no way you can deny it.
Yeah, and now we get this final standoff because Jim gets the gun and pulls it on her, and there's this like tense moment where they have more exchanges, and she's like, "You, I'm gonna have Linda forever unless you are out of the picture." So like encouraging him to kill himself, and he does take the gun, put it to his forehead, and all of a sudden, as he's standing there, it seems like Linda comes to because she screams. She's like, "Jim, don't!" And we hear the gunshot. So we are a little bit taken aback because we think he actually shot himself. But no, what does he do instead? He shoots the Ouija board a bunch of times.
The Ouija board, which is now currently floating in the air
Yes.
via
Yes.
horrible
So
green screen and starts rotating, spinning in circles.
as he's shooting it, yes. And everyone's like watching in disbelief. And she launches herself at him and he falls out the second story window in what has to be one of the worst falling effects I've ever seen in my entire life.
We've seen this exact same effect done way better, like where it's like from the perspective of the person who's falling. This has been masterfully like enhanced upon in movies to follow. This I would say is probably a very early example of someone trying to do like an artistic green screen fall where the actor is going backwards out the window, and they're clearly trying to do something very unique and kind of an artsy take on the fall out the window, and it just doesn't work. The green screen is a little off. But I applaud them for trying. I think my biggest gripe with this finale is more of just like how things just end up going exactly how they need to go to wrap up the story. Like for a moment, she's able to break free and say, "No, Jim, don't." And then she's possessed again, and she takes him out the window, and he goes out, and then it cuts. Like you don't know what happens, but like I don't really understand like what triggered the series of events that occurred. Like what was the motivating factor behind everything. It feels like it's a finale just for it to be a finale and like wrap up the story, and that's all.
The problem is like nothing's really elaborated on. Like we don't really find out a lot about this particular villain, this Malfador guy, or what is his real intentions just besides possessing Linda or what this whole portal means. It's wrapped up with a lot of loose ends, I think. And then yeah, Jim falls out of the window and it's very much implied that he lands on a car hood. And I do like the little kind of what's the word that they do? They pull like a little bait and switch because it immediately cuts to people crying in church. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I thought it was his funeral, right?
Yeah.
But it's not. It's their wedding, and he is in a neck brace. But then this doesn't make any sense. Did you think the same thing? Okay, so we see their wedding, but then the very next scene is the landlady cleaning up the apartment that had been destroyed. So what did they do? Did they get married that very day?
It makes absolutely no fucking sense. And if anything, how dare they leave all of that work for that landlady? Like, I mean, I don't care if you were possessed when you did it or not. Like, you are responsible for cleaning that house. Also, how did you manage to arrange this wedding so quickly? Like, obviously, it wasn't in the works to begin with. He just managed to say, "I love you," literally, minutes ago. So now all of a sudden you're having a fucking wedding. I think you guys need to really figure things out. You just got through quite a traumatic experience fighting a demonic force through a Ouija board. And now you're getting married? That seems like a rush decision. So yeah, this time frame doesn't make any sense. But one of the biggest issues of this movie, I would say, is the pacing, in the sense, like, I don't know, I could not tell you if this movie took place over the matter of a couple of days or maybe several months. Like, the way it's paced is so weird, and there's like weird time lapses, points where it just cuts away from things and you just don't know like where it left off. I really don't know like how long we've been getting to know these characters, you know?
Yeah, and it just bears repeating because I'm telling you, Roger, it really took me aback that they cut to a wedding scene, but then after the wedding scene is the landlady cleaning up the apartment. It just makes zero sense time wise.
Yeah, it really does. It's very confusing.
And okay, so you're trying to tell me he fell out of a 3-story window, landed back on a fucking hood of a car, and all he has is a neck brace on. Okay, whatever. I'll buy it. I will buy it for the simple fact that we do now get this broad, this toothy, homely broad. You know what I'm talking about, right?
The horse-faced girl.
Yes. Who's in the apartment with the landlady who finds the Ouija board and's like, look what I found. Do you think it still works? And the landlady's like, oh my God, a Ouija board. I haven't seen one of those since I was a kid. And the lady, the horsey looking girl with her big old fucking buck teeth is like, I didn't know they've been around that long. And they toss it in a garbage box. And we get a close up of it. And the ending shot is a push in on the Ouija board and on the word yes. And all of a sudden the planchette flies up to the word yes.
I do like that.
I do
like that.
I mean, I knew what they were going to do when it started to do that push in, but yeah, and that's Witchboard. That's the end.
I just can't believe they left that poor fucking landlady to do all that work and chose to go get married instead. It's very confusing to me. That's insulting, if anything, to that poor landlady. How dare they? And that horsey faced girl. I mean, who was that? Was that her granddaughter? I'm assuming. I'm guessing so. If she's in the sequel, I have severely less interest watching her versus one Tawny Katane, who was the only thing that really got me through the whole process of the movie, was that big redhead.
There is a sequel too. Have you seen the sequel?
No, I have not. No, this is definitely a movie that I think I know exactly what the sequel is going to be like. It's going to be very Skinamax. There's something about this movie that feels very Skinamax. Like, again, I think it's a smaller budget overall. It feels very kind of blasé in certain areas. Knowing that Night of the Demons was his next offering, it's definitely a huge sign of growth and style and flair, because this movie really kind of lacks style. I think thus the flatness, and there's definitely a huge element of growth and stepping into the next film, which is nothing but style and character and personality, and the visuals in Night of the Demons just hugely surpass this.
Oh, Night of the Demons is a far superior film. He greatly improved, like I said, his filmmaking techniques and his screenwriting. I've never seen the sequel either, but he directed that as well, and it came out in '93, so quite a bit after this particular one. And it has one Amy Dolenz in it from Can't Buy Me Love. She was in a bunch of '80s rom-coms and shit. So, and actually, oh my God, there's a third one too. Good Lord. So apparently this is quite the little franchise that I wasn't aware of. Now, again, I don't hate this movie. It has it's fun. It does have a few memorable scenes. It's just like, I don't think the ending did the build up any favors at all. It's like you said, it's very rushed.
No.
We don't learn much about the villain at all. I mean, throughout the entire movie, we are led to believe that the villain of the film is this David spirit, and it's not revealed until like the last 10 minutes of the film. And again, like you said, by some random character that, oh no, it's this notorious serial killer that we've never heard about before. To me, it was just very sloppy storytelling. It could have been tightened up quite a bit. It's like the script really needed a couple of people to come in and before it got transferred to film to really come in and revise it, tighten it up, add a little bit more story where needed, and then take out a bunch of the just confusing non-essential elements, such as every scene, including that damn detective.
Oh yeah.
But again, it's not the worst we've seen. I had fun with it. Yeah, so we got to give a big thanks to Julie Brock for suggesting this. I'm glad I got to check it out. It really is interesting knowing that the director went on to direct what I find to be almost a masterpiece of horror cinema from the 80s just a year later.
Yeah, I had a good time watching it, and I think that's all that really matters in this case. Like, it's definitely not a movie that I walk away and feel heavily impacted. It's not like I'm going to be 2 weeks from now thinking, Witchboard is on my mind. I'm really thinking into all of the everything that makes this movie work. There's not a lot to it. It's really simple at its core, and it's very basic, and it doesn't demand a lot of thinking. Which, hey, I can appreciate that. It was fun, but I stand by what I said earlier regarding the fact that I think that this would be actually a title that would do well with a proper remake, a good remake, a remake that maybe allowed it to smooth out some of the bumps, some of the hiccups from what we've said. It really did need another draft, I think, or two or three, to really tighten up some of these loose ends, make it feel more cohesive, and make it feel like there's just more at stake in general. Because the scare factor is very minimal, and everything having to do with Linda being taken over by this force really doesn't seem all that threatening. And then by the time you get to the end, she doesn't seem that threatening. So when the negative force, the antagonist, the evil in the film doesn't seem like it has that much of an impact. I mean, what is there to really care about? I guess.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. It's a fun little popcorn flick, but yeah, it does have its issues. So yeah, Witchboard. So, guys, let us know your thoughts on this film. I think it's definitely one I hear brought up occasionally, but considering it came out smack dab in the '80s, kind of in the middle of the slasher boom, it's one you really don't hear get talked about a lot or brought up a lot. I mean, considering all things considering who directed it, who stars in it, I would think it would be a little bit more of a popular title. But yeah, so let us know your thoughts on Witchboard, and until next week when we have a very special episode. Roger, do you want to reveal that real quick?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I'm very excited. Next week we're having a guest. It's a guest. It's a guest. And we're having a lady. It's been a hot minute since we've had some estrogen on the show, and I think it's needed and it's due time. And I'm very excited that my friend Hope Madden, a filmmaker who recently wrapped production on her feature film Obstacle Corpse, which I was lucky enough to be on set for a couple of days and watch her do her thing and make her magic, and had a great time. And I really want to have her on the show just because, it'll be nice to get a woman's perspective on a classic horror title. And the title she chose has me extra excited because, I feel this is a movie that oftentimes some of the female characters in it have been looked at as kind of like damsels in distress. But I love the final girl from this film. I stand by her. Sally Hardesty will always have my heart. We're covering the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre with a woman's perspective. And I'm really excited to hear that and to chat about that.
Yeah, that's going to be a great one. Considering we've covered the remake and we just recently covered part 4, I'm really excited to dive into the original source material because, I think it is, it's such a landmark film, such an influential film in the landscape of horror, and it'll be really interesting just to dive into it and be able to discuss, what makes the film so iconic and influential, and yeah, definitely get a female perspective, because it is such a, I don't know, gritty, yeah, just downright effective, terrifying film. Unfortunately, the franchise I think is probably one of the more problematic, weaker horror franchises out there. But there's no denying the power of the original. So we are super excited, guys. So join us, next week with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Toby Hooper's masterpiece. And again, let us know your thoughts on Witchboard.
Yes, let us know. And I must end this on a somber note. Rest in peace, Tawny Katane. I mean, at least we have Witchboard to remember her magic, her beauty, and her splendor.
Taken way too soon. Way too soon.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. With that, good night.